friends, to the 1000 Hours Outside podcast. My name is Ginny Urich. I am the founder of 1000 Hours Outside. I have my friend back with me today, Greta Eskridge. Welcome, Greta.
Thank
You've got
you.
a fun name. I love the name Greta.
Thanks.
It's like
There are
unique and
not very
cute.
many Gretas around. I love
Yeah,
your name too. I mean, you both have
little
unusual names.
little more unique. So,
Did
Greta
you
has
love
been.
your name when you were a kid?
I did. Yeah, I like having a name that not a lot of people have. How about you?
Yeah, I did too. But I didn't until I was about 6, and my one of my aunts gave me a book called Little Greta of Denmark. And until then, I never saw my name anywhere,
Mm,
like on those
yeah,
little license plates or a cup or a
yeah.
pencil, never there was Greta. And so I kind of was sad, like I didn't have my name anywhere. But then she gave me this book and it was about this little girl who grew up in Denmark. And I was like, that's me. And then I loved it.
Oh, that's a cute story. Isn't that interesting how sometimes these little things leave such an impact that your
Yeah,
aunt
it
buying
really
that
is.
book,
I
that's
still have the book. It's a treasure.
oh, it is. That's so
Yeah.
cute. Oh, well, Greta and I go way back to the Wild and Free conference from last fall. And we've also already done a podcast episode together, and we'll be doing another one. So this is great news for me because it's a chance to talk to a friend. But Greta wrote this fabulous book, Adventuring Together: How to Create Connections and Make Lasting Memories with Your Kids. It's a fabulous read. I loved it, and I constantly see people posting about this book. It gave me a bunch of ideas, and so we already podcasted about that. We chatted about this awesome book, and you have another book coming next month,
Yeah.
in March, and that is 100 Days of Adventure. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, that is a book for kids, and it's 100 different activities based seasonally. So there's 25 for each season, and the idea is to get kids to just engage with the real world. So that could be through books, through outside adventures, through art activities, cooking, museum trips, but just to experience the world and just to have adventures. And it was so fun to imagine myself as a little 8-year-old girl. What would
Mm,
she have liked? And to
yeah.
remember myself and to write for her. It was amazing. And then to think about the kids who will be reading it, like it was a blast. And I hope that kids will enjoy adventuring with the ideas that are in the book.
Oh, I'm sure they will. And it's interesting. I think kids innately know that the real world experiences are good for them, and I think they're drawn to those types of books. So we're going to be podcasting about that book here soon, but definitely keep your eye out for that. I'm sure by the time this one launches that you can pre-order, and pre-ordering is always really helpful for authors, and so you want to pre-order that book. We will definitely be pre-ordering and excited to go through that one with our family. Our topic today, though, is very different from those two books, and this is something that we haven't talked about on the podcast before, but I think is a very pertinent topic. And so we're going to be talking about pornography today on the podcast. And so if you have little ears around, we will really sort of delicately dance around, but it might not be one for little ears. Greta has just really taken up this fight and has incredible information. And so I am really grateful to hear what she has to say. And this is a topic I that everyone, I think it's on everyone's mind, Greta, but that I'm not getting a whole lot of information about. Would you say that sort of other people's similar experiences?
Yeah, I think a lot of parents are concerned. They know it's out there. They know it's something their kids have already dealt with or are going to deal with. But as parents, they don't know how to deal with it. They're like,
Yeah,
I know it's out there. I know our kids are going to face. How do I handle it? What do I say?
right.
I'm lost. And
Yeah.
that's how I think a lot of parents feel.
Yeah. Well, we're in this sort of brand new territory with the internet and smartphones. I'm gonna set this up with a little bit of a story, and then sort of hand it over to you a little bit to share what you've learned. as a mom and as a parent, um, and hopefully we go away with some tools and just some thoughts. So my story is that I used to be a public school teacher, and just in a normal district, like kids, good parents, involved parents, and a district where I think kids aren't getting in a ton of trouble and that sort of thing. Um, and my last year, I was a math coordinator for the whole district. So I was making sure that all the classrooms were in line with the state curriculum and that sort of thing. And so that took me into all the different levels of classrooms. And I was at a parent meeting. This would have been back in 2007, before the iPhone came out, but I was in a parent meeting in the evening to talk about the math curriculum. Exciting. But the police were also there, as a part of this parent meeting, and they were there because the seventh grade class, the seventh grade students, who are, I think, around 12, were having relations with each other, and they were videotaping it on their flip phones and then sending
Mm.
it to the class. And I just remember thinking a lot of things, really. I remember thinking about being in seventh grade and how hard it was to be a seventh grader. I remember not wanting to go back to school. I thought, there's so much of this popularity, there's so much pressure. In our middle school, there was like this spot where the cool kids stood, and like occasionally maybe you'd get to stand there. And there was just so much peer pressure to look a certain way and to talk a certain way. And I just thought, what would seventh grade have been like if there were also this pressure? If what's going through the seventh grade are these videos, and then also, what is it like to, as a 12-year-old, have those videos of yourself out in the world that you can't take back, and um, so that really affected me, as 12-year-olds are really young. And then we had our first child in 2008, and I left the public school system. And then the iPhone, I think, came out in 2009. And so I have not seen the change, but I would imagine that, if this is what was happening on flip phones in 2007, that, the change has been very dramatic, with having these computers in our pockets, basically. So, I think that every parent, assumes it's not their kid, but it was someone's kids, that were doing that. And additionally, I think, within a school environment, even if it's not your child knows what's going on, and so that information is out there, and so it it made it it made it seem a lot more real. These are 12-year-olds, and probably the sixth graders know what's going on too, and that this is starting very young. So there's a couple topics there, maybe, which is
Yeah.
um, accessibility, um, and sort of, you know, this world that maybe we don't know about.
Mm.
What's sort of going on in this world of teenagers and preteens that maybe we don't really know.
Yeah. Well, I would start by saying it's important for parents to realize that the average age of exposure to pornography is 11. So that's
Yeah,
long before teens, long before high school. And a lot of experts are now saying it's even younger, like around the age of 8, um, which is hard to wrap your head around because an 8-year-old should be watching, the Lego movie,
right.
and should not have to deal with the trauma that would come from exposure to pornography. But that's the world we live in because kids are on screens so much.
Yeah,
And because they're on screen so much, there is just the opportunity for accidental exposure, or for something to happen like a simple search that you mistype one word, or you type in a regular search, you didn't even mistype. It could be something like Disney princesses, and your child is innocently looking for pictures of Ariel or Princess Jasmine, and they're looking at Google Images and scroll down just a little ways, and suddenly there's an image of Princess Jasmine or Ariel, and it's pretty sexy. And your child is interested because, wow, I'm not used to seeing the Disney princesses look that way. And they click on it, and suddenly they're just taken down a rabbit hole. And that is
Mhm.
not their fault.
Right.
That's the fault of the people who are creating pornography and who are purposely creating avenues for kids to be exposed to pornography.
Mm.
Um, there's opportunity for young kids to be exposed to pornography when they're, at a sporting event and they're sitting in the dugout or
Mm.
playing hockey or riding the bus or whatever it is, and somebody
Yeah.
shows them a picture, or they send it to the class, similar to the story you told, where one kid is like, haha, I'm going to show everybody in class what I've been looking at, and sends it out to
Mm.
everybody's Chromebook. Because even though there are firewalls and there is supposed to be software in place to protect them, um, the kids and the people who are producing pornography know how to get around a lot of it, and they're
Mm.
going to try. And so, knowing that, it's our responsibility as parents not to hide our heads in the sand and say, like,
Mm.
oh, my kid's too young, it's not going to happen, or I put some software on the computer so it's safe. Instead, we need to really be honest about the fact that um, it's not like if my kid gets exposed to porn, but when. And
Mm.
when they are exposed to porn, whether that's at 8 or 18, do they know what to do?
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting because, we are 1,000 Hours Outside is not an anti-screen movement.
Yeah.
I talk about there's a statistic that says that kids are outside playing for 4 to 7 minutes a day, but they're on screens for 4 to 7 hours. That's an American average, this imbalance of play versus virtual versus real. And so
Right.
occasionally I've posted that statistic, and some parents get up in arms, stop vilifying screens, that's sort of the rhetoric. And that's not my MO. I mean,
Right.
we watch TV and things like that. Although I am really intrigued by the families that don't have screens. I do think that's really cool. But we're not
Yeah.
there. And so for the most part, I don't think that screens are evil. I think that they take valuable time that kids or adults need to develop and grow, and there's that risk. And I think that there's some addictive qualities to video games and things, but pornography is a whole beast in and of itself. Um, and so I do think that the consequences there can be very dire and long lasting. So, do you have any information, Greta, about what happens? What happens when a kid is 8 years old, or 11 years old, or 14 years old, or 18 years old, and gets exposed to pornography?
Well, the research is fairly new in this area because it's a fairly new um, phenomenon that's taking
Yeah.
place. But there are alarming trends that are happening. For example, we're seeing things like child on child sexual abuse because
Mm.
kids are acting out the things that they see. And that's a pretty new phenomenon.
Yeah.
Um, and in fact, some experts are even saying things like kids being exposed to pornography or child sexual abuse material, which is what it's often being called, is actually a kind of sexual abuse, even though it's not
Mm.
being done to them physically, but the images or the videos, the things that they're seeing are so damaging that it's akin to being physically abused.
Mm.
So the thing is that
Wow.
it the difference, of course, um, there is going to be a difference, of course, for every child, and based on their own personality, how sensitive they are to things, the type of exposure, the length of exposure. If they go back to look at more. All of those things are factors. But the important thing to remember is that what is happening is that their first views into the world of sexuality are often ones that are violent, because the nature of porn now is incredibly violent. And so pornography has changed. And sometimes parents will think back to like their own childhood, if they saw a Playboy magazine, that
Right.
a dad or a parent had hidden in the bathroom or under the bed or whatever. And they're like, well,
Mhm.
it's not that big of a deal. But pornography has really changed, and it has become incredibly violent, and and to be honest, like um, more vile than I think a lot of us can even
Mhm.
begin to comprehend. And so for a kid to see that and to be exposed to that view of sexuality and of interactions between men and women, and the way a woman
Mhm.
is being treated, the role a man is playing, that's going to make an impression on them. And that's why I said, it's, as parents, we have to help our kids be prepared for what to do if they encounter that, so that they're
Mhm.
not paralyzed with fear. And then just like, what do I do with what I'm seeing? And also, if they're curious, because that is a real life
Mhm.
experience as well. Like, what am I seeing? Like, this piqued my curiosity, that they know what to do with that as well. And so we really have to help them be able to navigate how to respond, so that it doesn't grow and mushroom into something that could become really damaging for them.
Yeah. I I had this, I only have a very few touch points here. But I have one more, and this would
Okay.
have also been before the iPhone, I'm pretty sure. But when our kids were young, or maybe right around there, I joined MOPS, which stands for Mothers of Preschoolers. So is this group, and we get together, and there was like babysitters for your kids. So it was like this fantastic thing.
Yes,
You're like
right.
you're like drowning, and
Yeah.
so you get to, anyways, they always brought my kids back because they were always crying. But anyway, so twice a month, we go, and there was a breakfast. And anyway, one of the years I did it, they showed this video series called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. So it
Mm.
wasn't married couples, it was all just women. And it's by this guy named Mark Gungor, and he's really funny. It was, that's why it's called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. It was like this little comedy thing. And so I don't know, occasionally they show these videos, and they were entertaining and thought provoking. But one of the things he talked about, like what you were just talking about, was sort of this imprint, or first impression. And he said that especially for men or young boys, that their first sexual experiences imprint on their brain. It's such a powerful thing. And so he talked about it even in terms of, like, if a certain bird hatches out of an egg, and the first thing it sees is a cat, and then it thinks the cat's its mother. It's that imprint, right? That, like, it sticks, it's like seared there. And that's what he was saying about for, young men with their first sexual experiences. And he said, so, if it's in the context of marriage, that's a really different thing than if it's in the backseat of the car, this rush thing, or if it's a pornography experience, that
Yeah.
first experience, you know, leaves a really marked impact. And so that's something that has really stuck with me now that, we have kids, and kids that are teenagers. And you think, one of our rules is to not look at other people's phones. If someone else, all their friends have phones already. So if you're sitting next to someone and they're scrolling through, you're not to look. I mean, who knows? I don't know if they do or not. That's what we talk about. That's what's so
Yeah.
tricky. you know
Yeah.
um so what are some of the tools, or what are you saying to your kids? What are the conversations in your home? What do you recommend that parents do?
So, just for context, my kids are now 17, 15, 13, and 10.
Mm.
And so the conversations with my older teens are, I mean, we talk about everything. And there's pretty much nothing that they couldn't ask me. Um, and there's pretty much nothing that I wouldn't talk about with them. A lot of times our conversations are brought up because of um, like, it's not like we sit down every week for, okay, it's time for pornography talks with mom or pornography
Right.
talks with mom and dad. They're more organic. Like something comes up, I'm reading an article and I say, "Oh my gosh," and then they'll say, "What are you? What are you? Why are you saying, oh my gosh?" And then I'm like, "Do you really want me to tell you?" And they're like, "Yes, tell us." Or we see something when we're driving on the freeway,
Mm.
and a sign, or people have stickers on their car that we've seen that are totally soft porn, and you
Mm.
pull up next to this car and it's covered with stickers, and it's like, we can't not talk about that. And so it's a
Right.
perfect opportunity to have conversations with my older teens. But when my kids were younger, which I think is the place where a lot of parents feel stuck, we simply started by talking about what to do if they saw pornography.
Hmm.
So I started by telling them, first of all, what it was. And when they're little, like 6 or 7, they don't need hardly any information at all other than pornography is, and that the definition that you as a family have decided, as parents or um, caregivers, that you've decided what pornography is. So I would say something like, there's this thing called pornography, and it's not good for your brain or your heart. And it's my
Mm.
job to keep you safe from it. Pornography is pictures or movies of people with no clothes on, showing all their privates. And if you see it on a phone, or when you're playing a game and a pop-up ad comes, or you're looking on Netflix or YouTube, then I want you to close the computer or turn the phone over, or um, push the game away. If somebody shows it to you on their phone or their computer, I want you to say, "I don't want to look at that." And I want you to walk away. And so I tell them what it is. I tell them what to do if they see it. And then I end with, "And if that happens, come tell me. You won't be in trouble. You are doing the right thing by coming to talk to me, and we'll talk about what you've seen and help
Mm.
you understand what was going on." And that empowers your kid,
Yeah.
and it makes it not scary. If they
Hmm.
see it, it gives them tools for a concrete thing to do in the moment. You can
Hmm.
even act it out, like close the
Yeah.
computer and walk away, or say,
Yeah.
"I don't want to look at that," and put your hand up and walk the other direction. um, just like you would act out what to do if you get lost when you go to Disneyland
Yeah.
or the fair. um, or if there's a fire, you act out what to do you have a
Hmm.
plan if there's a fire. Like,
Yeah.
this is just another example. I call it having a porn plan.
Yeah.
Everybody laughed at me for that name, but
That's
I
great.
say, you're not going to forget the name porn
Maybe that
plan.
can be your
You
book.
come up with
Maybe
your
that can
own
be
name.
your book title. Having a porn plan by Greta.
The porn plan. Um, but you have to have a plan. You really do.
Yeah.
You have to give them an escape plan.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say to every parent, starting around the age of 6 or 7, and then that conversation continues as your kids get older. So when you have middle schoolers, if they have a phone, or their friends do, you're going to need to talk to them about nudes. Hey, I know kids are sending nudes to each other. Have you ever gotten one? Have you ever sent
Hmm.
one? Do you know other kids who are? What would you do? Like, that's the conversation that you need to have when your kids are a little older. And then when your kids are
Yeah.
in high school, the conversation is going to change and you're going to talk about other stuff. But it's not once, it's
Right.
a continuing conversation. And the
Yeah.
content changes as the kids get older and they're exposed to more things.
Yeah. You know, it's I can't imagine being a kid right now.
I know.
I had this
I know.
experience when you say the word nudes. Um, I was driving with. I've got a friend that has had. This is a couple years ago. Her kids were teenagers already. Mine were still young. Our kids were in high school. And so I remember, I don't know, we were going somewhere, I was with them, um and so, I ask if they're dating, or, it's like the thing, I don't know, you're like a nerdy parent and you're asking like the typical questions. Do you have a boyfriend? Whatever. Are you dating? Or and the one girl, she says to me, all the no, all the guys at the school are jerks. They all want you to send nudes. That's what she said. And Greta, I'd never heard that word before. I never heard it. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is that word? And she said it again. And I was like, I really don't even know what you're saying. Like, spell it. And then they finally were like, nude photos. And I was like,
And you're like,
oh, these poor kids.
yeah,
Oh, that
I
is their
know.
pressure as a high schooler, and as a
Or
middle
middle
schooler.
schooler, middle
Yes,
school.
yes. And here is a word that I didn't grow up with. And I felt
Yeah.
a lot of peer pressure, in other ways, just all the time. And so this is just a whole different layer, I think, of pressure, um, to say that every guy expects you to, and I'm sure it's not true that it was 100%, but she felt that every, suitable
Yeah.
boyfriend expected you to send these nude photos. And,
Yeah.
um, that's something that you can't ever get back. Once it's
Right.
sent,
And
it's out there.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot, but I think of how helpful is it if we can journey with our kids through that, because
Yeah.
if this is the world that they're entering and we can't, and even if we put all the filters on their phones and all the protective parental controls on the computer and everything we can do,
Yeah.
stuff is going to slip in. And it
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're a bad kid. It doesn't mean you're doing a bad job as a parent. It doesn't mean technology is evil. It's just the reality,
Yeah.
because this is a multi-million, it's $1 billion industry. They want to make money. They have to make money by
Mm.
getting people, including kids, hooked on their product.
Yeah.
So that's what we're up against. So that's the reality. We have to help our kids navigate it. So that
Yeah.
means talking to them about things like what to do if somebody asks you for a nude or somebody sends you one, what to do, what is your digital footprint, like do they even know that if they send a nude to
Mm.
somebody and they
Wow.
screenshot it, theirs forever, does your kid
Yeah.
know about that? How that the things that they post stay there, they stay out there.
Yeah.
Those are conversations we have with our kids now, and I think it's so important for our kids to know we are their
Mm.
partners in this. We're not the enemy trying to keep them off of all technology and that we're
Right.
just waiting to catch them do something bad. We are there to walk with them, walk alongside them, help them when it's really difficult, um, and to offer them something so much better than
Mm.
this false intimacy and false connection that pornography
Mm.
promises.
And that's a
Instead,
whole, yeah,
we
that's a
give
whole
them.
other conversation right there too, is just the
Yeah,
why.
it is.
Yeah, for sure.
It's something that I'm really passionate about, because I think um, we want to vilify people who are using pornography, and we don't always understand why. That
Mm.
sometimes, a lot of times, people are using pornography, even teens and younger, because they're lonely, they're depressed, they're
Mm.
discouraged, they're
Yeah.
bored. And if they're looking for something to fill that void and pornography offers it, they
Yeah.
don't know that it's not real, that it's
Right.
false. And
Right.
so if we can have compassion
Mm.
for our kids as they journey through this and say, I want to help you, I want to spend time with you. Let's go outside when you're feeling
Mm.
bored or discouraged or depressed or lonely. Let's find
Yeah.
something positive to do. Those are ways we can help our kids to fight
Yeah,
this.
and it's interesting. I think you just talk about all these conversations, and I did a podcast with Gab Wireless, which I know you're familiar with them, and they have
Yeah.
a non-smartphone, I think they call it, or a first phone for kids. And it's a phone that it's just a phone. It's not a phone with the computer internet.
Right.
It's just you can call and text, and um
It's
I
great.
think, and yeah, it's a great. And so it's interesting when I talked to them, that's something I didn't think about was, they said, in every area of life, we teach in small steps. We teach
Mhm.
children the ABCs, and then we teach them phonics, and we start with a tricycle and all of these different things. I used to teach swim lessons, so you start with floating. You don't just throw the kid off the diving board, right? And so
Yeah.
what this lady said from Gab Wireless, she said, but that's what we're doing with technology, is that we're not teaching in incremental steps, just like how we teach everything else. We're literally just handing them the final product,
Yeah.
and like you said, maybe we've got some filters or whatever, but there's always workarounds and kids find them, and we're just saying
Mhm.
have at it. And so I liked that stuck with me, because there are some things out there where you can start to teach in steps, and
Sure.
um, you can find products that still allow your child to communicate,
Yeah.
but also there's this safeguard around them,
Right.
until they get older, or you just maybe are postponing the inevitable. I don't know, but you're
Yeah. Well,
postponing
I
at
think
least.
too, like, I mean, because I have a son, he's almost 18. So he'll be 18 in 4 months. And in our
Yeah,
family, our rule thus far, what we're striving for is no smartphones till 18, no
great.
social media till 18. Um, but I'm not going to, when he turns 18, just be like, okay, here you go. I hope you figure it out. I hope you don't drown.
Yeah.
Like, but instead to give him that 18 years of foundation of not being tethered to a device is really powerful, I think,
Yeah.
because he's had this huge chunk of time, formative years to experience life without being tethered to a phone. And I
Yeah.
think that's a really valuable gift that we can give our kids. And I do
Hmm.
believe it's possible in this day and age. But then once he gets it, because he's going to need one for real life, like when he
Right.
goes driving far away, like I want him to have Google Maps when he's, um,
Hmm.
applying for a job, gets a job, going to college, whatever, he's going to need the
Yeah.
technology, right? And so my job is to teach him when he has it how to use it well. And so that's what we've been working towards. And then when
Hmm.
he gets that device, we'll continue with it, with the
Hmm.
training and with the teaching and accountability and use learning to use it well.
Yeah.
So I don't think the conversation even should stop when our kids turn 18. Like, I
Mm.
think this is a conversation parents can have and should have with their young adults, because young
Yeah.
adults are struggling with this. Like, this is for, 5 and up. Like, let's just talk about it
Yeah.
and help our kids.
Yeah, I think it's a really powerful statement for people to hear that you're waiting till 18. I know that there's a big push of the wait till eighth. There's a whole campaign about it, and they've got a website, and I think that's fantastic too. Just this concept of waiting. And actually, I talked with this Waldorf school today out of Colorado, and within their whole school system, they have a whole pact where the kids are not allowed to have smartphones until they're in eighth grade. And I thought it's really good when you have community around you.
Yes, that's
And so that pulls off the pressure off the child. I'm going to talk about these little moments. I used to teach piano lessons. It's like my favorite part of life. I can't wait. I can't wait. I'm like, I can't. We've got these five kids, and I can't right now. I just can't pull it off. But someday I hope to be like a gray-haired lady and teaching 1,000 piano students. That's my dream. So this is like my favorite part of life. And I had this little girl who was in kindergarten, and she went home for holiday break, and we didn't have lessons for a couple weeks, and she came back after the holidays and said, what did you get for Christmas? And she said, I got a Fitbit, but I'm telling everyone it's my phone. And I thought, oh, the pressure, for little kindergartners. And so to have a community, for someone to say Greta's son doesn't get one till he's 18, I think that those things are really, and I think it's a really awesome that you're sharing that. I think, you know, truth be told, I don't know anyone else who's waiting until 18. And so our son is 13. He doesn't have a smartphone yet. He's an eighth grader this year. And so that's good for me to hear. I'm like, we can wait it out. And there are these other options, these non-smartphones or a watch that can make a phone call if you need to communicate, or
Yeah.
that Gab has those watches. I mean, it's such a there's something, at least there's something, and I'm so thankful for that. And I think it's so cool. It's very inspiring to hear that you're waiting, and then to hear what your plan is after,
I
after he
think
turns 18.
that I I always had that goal in mind from the time my kids were little, because really when they were little was when the internet and the internet was already in existence, but smartphones were really, you know, taking off, and
Hmm.
the iPhone, and just like in the course of their childhood, I have seen um, a lot of uh, harm that has come from that is being done be, to kids because
Yeah.
of pornography. And so I just thought, I can't, knowing what I know, I hear from parents like every day. I get messages from parents who tell me my kid's been exposed to porn, my kid's been
Mm.
using porn, found it, but someone sent it to him while he was playing on his Nintendo Switch, whatever. Like I hear from
Wow.
parents, and I just am like, I can't,
Mm.
I I can't in good conscience just be like the average American who gives their 10-year-old their own iPhone. Like,
Mm.
I just couldn't do it. My heart wouldn't let me. And I've had really honest conversations with my kids. I'm like, I know sometimes this makes your life harder. I
Yeah.
understand that. And I'm sorry that it makes your life harder. But my hope is that when you get older, it might not be till you're a parent yourself that you'll say, my mom did what she thought was best
Yeah.
because she wanted to do the best for us. Because
Hmm.
my heart breaks for
Yeah.
um, so many kids and the
Yeah.
hurting moms and dads that I talk to.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I talk about pornography, because this wouldn't be my number one choice for a topic to talk about with people.
Mm.
Um, but I care. I care about kids. I care about
Yeah.
your kids. I don't know your kids, but I care about them.
Yeah.
I did meet them once.
Hmm.
And I care about all the kids of the listeners of your show. I
Yeah.
care about the moms and dads who feel like, what do I do? We aren't like helpless. We
Hmm.
can do it, but
Yeah.
it's gonna take awkward conversations. It's gonna require us to be brave. It's gonna
Yeah.
require us to maybe live life different than um, the norm, like what everybody
Yeah.
else is doing, waiting till eighth grade, waiting till 16, waiting till 18, whatever is right
Hmm.
for you. But being willing to be different is hard. But
Yeah.
man, when we are willing to be different, a lot of times really good stuff comes out of that.
Yeah, and that's a really good point. I met for the first time ever, I met an adult, this 28-year-old man at a conference. We were there with our family, but and he had a flip phone, and that's all he
Yeah.
had. So he couldn't get, it was like a group of us, and there was like this game night, and then I was going to send a picture, it was like a group chat. I'm sending out the picture, and he didn't have it. He didn't have a phone where I could send a photo. He couldn't be in the group chat. And I thought, that's cool. You've
Yeah.
got to be really brave, and you got to be
Yes.
so sure of yourself to be able to step out of those cultural norms. And I think other people look at it and be like, well, that person's really cool, that they can
Mhm.
still be self-assured, and, they're still having a good life with their flip phone. And
Yeah.
I just thought, that was pretty impactful and pretty awesome. So I think, your book and your platform, um, you're in this unique position where people come to you. And so one of the questions I was going to ask was, and you kind of just answered it, but there's this hashtag Greta fights porn. Um, can you remember when you first used that? Has this been a newer
Ah,
thing? Has it been around for a little while? And everyone can use that hashtag Greta Fights Porn, and you'll find all sorts of information, statistics, that you've shared.
all my posts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a
You,
good story. Can I tell you the
yeah, and
story
yeah, I want
about
to hear it.
that?
We can maybe end with that.
Okay. Um, and I love this story because it illustrates that you are probably going to say the wrong thing. You're going to be awkward with your kids, and
Mm,
it's okay.
yeah.
The trick is to just pick yourself up off the floor and laugh a little and be like, okay, well, that was awkward, but we're going to keep going. What happened was I had started writing about pornography, fighting porn, um, talking to parents, and I had gathered like a lot of resources, and I was getting more questions and more comments from parents than I could handle. And so I thought, okay, how can I create a place where
Mm,
they can have access to this stuff? Well, I'll make a highlight on Instagram. Highlights were kind of new,
mhm,
and I really didn't know that much about them. But I'm like, this is great. It'll all be here, and it'll have links to like the blog posts that people should listen or should read, the podcast episodes they should listen to, the books that I recommend, everything in one place. It's going to be amazing. Like this shows the level of my tech capabilities that I thought creating this
mhm.
highlight on Instagram is going to be amazing. So I worked hard. Like I really didn't know what I was doing, created all the links, got it all set up, right? Put it all together in a semi-organized fashion. And you have to title highlights on Instagram. So we're talking about Instagram. And I titled it porn resources exclamation point and went to bed. I thought it was great. Like porn resources. Here you go. Here's all
Yeah,
your
yeah.
resources. And the next morning, I woke up and I had a lot of messages from people who were like, Greta, like, we totally know you and we get what you mean, but somebody could not at all understand what porn resources
Oh,
exclamation point
yes.
means.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, you're right. Okay. So I changed it to fight porn,
Yeah,
exclamation point. And that just became my hashtag. I was like,
yeah.
okay, that's what I'm doing. Cause I can't write, Greta's porn hashtag Greta's porn resources. I don't want anybody to look that up.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I was like,
goodness.
Greta fights
Thank goodness for
porn.
our
And
friends, right? Who are like, yeah, that doesn't really sound right.
and so that was like, that's what I'm doing. I'm here to fight
Yeah.
porn, protect kids, empower families, and fight
I love
pornography.
that. This is your
There you
subtitle.
go.
You got the whole thing here. Having a porn plan, protect kids, empower families. There's the title and the subtitle, Greta.
There you go.
You
That's
know,
good
I
because I always need help with titles.
That's the one thing that you and I have talked about a little bit, which is that there are not that many resources for this at this time. And like you said, this is new. If the iPhone came out in 2009, we're talking about something that's just over a decade. And so I would encourage everyone to you can follow hashtags, Greta
Yeah.
Fights Porn, and I think knowing that there's someone out there that's researching and looking for the information, and if we follow along, you're sharing these things regularly, that's really helpful. Um, you know, to parents, I think we're all kind of in the dark here, um, trying to
I'll
figure
do
out
the
what to
legwork
do. And
for you.
um, what's that?
Yeah, I said I'll do the legwork for you,
I
and
do.
you
It
guys
does kind of feel like that. Just follow Greta's hashtag. She'll tell you what to do. I mean, it's a real issue. As a child, we as a teenager would go on these trips with our church. These youth group trips, whatever, a weekend at a winter place. We're in Michigan, so snow tubing or whatever. And so our son is at the age, and this is a real issue that my husband and I are. I think everyone has real issues that they're really struggling through, which is to send a child in this day and age to an experience like that is very different because all the kids have their phones with them, and um, the chance of exposure to something that you don't want them to see is so much higher. And so uh, we haven't landed. I mean, it's hard to know what to do.
You have to talk about them, talk
Yeah.
about it with them before they go to camp. I mean, I remember the first time I sent my kid to camp, like, oh, my
Yeah.
son was 12 and I was like, oh my gosh, like it's scary enough to send your first kid off to camp.
Yeah.
Like it's terrifying. And then to know this is part of the the
It's
story,
part of the
like
equation now, right?
yeah,
It's out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
But we talked about it and I gave him tools and talked about what to do. And,
Yeah.
because we just have to we just have to prepare them
Yeah.
as best we can. We
Yeah.
can't put them in there's no such thing as a porn proof force field or a bubble. Like that
Right.
doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
But they can have tools in their tool belt so that they are empowered. We can be
Yeah.
empowered as parents, and then we can empower our kids to fight porn.
Yeah. Well, Greta, this is really such an important topic. It's such a current topic and will continue to be. And so I just want to thank you for talking about the hard things and for being willing. I know you've been on a whole lot of podcasts to talk about this, and you travel the country and talk about it. And so thank you for being a mouthpiece. Thank you for doing the legwork, for being brave and willing to share what you've learned. I'm going to be following along. Greta Fights Porn, and I'm waiting
I
for the book.
appreciate it,
And
honestly.
and thank you. I know all the listeners, whatever their age of kids, this is coming. Like you said, even if they're still young, it's time to think about it and at least have some sort of a plan in place. So I really appreciate your time, Greta, and we'll see you next month.
Okay.
For
I
the
can't
next
wait.
installment of Greta Eskridge, 100 Days of Adventure. So, Greta, if people want to find you, GretaEskridge.com. I'll put it in the show notes. Adventuring Together is her first book. 100 Days of Adventure comes out next month. Greta Fights Porn is a hashtag that you can follow, and you just want to follow Greta on Instagram. Her Instagram handle is Ma and Pa Modern, and I'll make sure all that's tagged on there. She's just someone you want to know anyways. Her kids have these awesome coloring pages.
They're
Our
gonna
kids
have
have
some
loved those.
February.
They have
Yeah,
loved those. So she's got great things on her website, all sorts of resources. Make sure you check it out and pre-order 100 Days of Adventure. It's better, you just, if you fill the time and there's less time for screens, I think that's also a small strategy,
yes, it's a
that
big
helps as well.
strategy. I agree. Yeah.
Fill our life with the good stuff. Well, Greta, thank you very much. Can't wait to see you next month.
Hey, thanks.
Thank you.